On today's horror news, Buffy is back. Jack Black confirms the cast of the new Anaconda movie. There's some new details on shark movies Breathe Deep in Deep Water. And yes, there's some Scream 7 casting news we have to talk about. Hello and welcome to What Culture Horror. With myself, Andrew Pollard. I hope you're good. I hope your week is treating you well. Right, let's start things off with that Buffy the Vampire Slayer news. Yes, after years, decades, dare I say, of speculation, after years of fans clamoring for it, we now have word that a Buffy the Vampire Slayer reboot is seemingly on the way. As first reported by Deadline, the Hulu streaming service is closing in on a pilot order for a Buffy reboot, with Chloe Zhao already on board to direct that pilot episode. Now, not only is Chloe Zhao an Oscar winner thanks to Nomadland, but she also is a huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. And for those wondering, yes, it's expected that Sarah Michelle Gellar will be back as Buffy Summers, although the current plan of attack for this series is for Buffy to be more of a supporting player, I guess, here. A supporting Slayer, if you will. I will get my coat. Oh, it's awful. Horrendous pun. With other characters instead taking center stage. Now, previously, Sarah Michelle Gellar was against the idea of ever returning as Buffy. Talked about how she likes that series and Angel existing as they are in their own bubble sort of thing, as in, that's from a slice of time, that's all boxed off, that's done with, that's there, enjoy it as it is. But then late last year, Sarah Michelle Gellar somewhat softened her stance, noting in some interviews that the success of Sex and the City, the reboot there, and also the continuation of Dexter, she kind of pointed to those as examples of shows that can be brought back in a way. I mean, the various Dexter returns, spin-offs, prequels, yeah, not really for me, but Sex and the City has done very, very well. Of course, now we've also got Scrubs on the way. Scrubs and Malcolm in the Middle, even. There's two other series that are having their own returns to the screen, to the small screen. Although Buffy is an entirely different beast. I'm a huge Malcolm in the Middle kind of guy. Scrubs, I can take or leave, but my point being, Buffy is an entirely different beast to those series. The show still has such a crazy big fan base to this very day. I mean, trust me, I've hosted a bunch of Buffy Comic-Con panels over the years, which are always a lot of fun, with various members of the cast, and that Buffy fan base, man, it is nuts, and I mean that in the best possible way. Passionate would be the word, very much passionate, and it's that sort of passion that makes a Buffy reboot a reality all these years later. I mean, what, 2003? So we're 22 years since Buffy ended, which is crazy. It makes me feel old. 21 years, I guess it'd be then, since Angel as well called it a day. But there's still just such a demand for more from this universe, these characters. Yes, it looks like we are going to be getting to pay another trip to those characters and that universe, which, yeah, it's an interesting one. It's definitely something that's got my attention. It's definitely something that's got a lot of people's attention. And now we see, with Chloe Zhao, it's in ideal hands. So fingers crossed for the Buffy return. Now, in case you missed it, in terms of returns for I don't want to say fan favorite franchise because that might be a bit disingenuous, but Sony is at work on a new Anaconda movie that's currently set for a Christmas Day 2025 release. And it seems this is going to be quite the big name picture, with this week bringing word on the main cast of this new Anaconda film. Now, in I guess you could call it a Tenacious D light style song. It's only like a minute. Jack Black put out a video confirming himself, Paul Rudd, Thandie Newton, Steve Zahn, Daniela Melchior, and Selton Mello as being the key players of this new Anaconda. You also had, as well as Jack Black singing along, you had Mello was on the guitar, Rudd was on the, I don't know what you call them, not drums, but yeah, no drums, we'll go with drums. But yeah, it's a fun little video. It's only like a minute long, but it's like, oh right, there's the cast, that's the cast, yep, yeah, and all the people are popping up there. I guess like headshots are popping up on the screen as Jack Black is making mention of them. The unbearable weight of massive talent, writer-director Tom Gormican is, well, writing and directing here. And the early plot details let us know that the film will see a group of friends having a bit of a midlife crisis, and so they decide to head out to the rainforest to make their own version of their favourite movie from their younger years, presumably Anaconda. Of course, the group soon find themselves up against giant snakes, as well as the elements, and also there's a few criminals thrown in for good measure. Geez, I feel like I'm very much aging myself and making myself feel decrepit. Talk about Buffy and how long ago that wrapped up. Anaconda, the original Anaconda, it's soon it will be 30 years since that film came out, and I saw that film in cinemas. Jeez Louise. 1997. You had such a a stat cast for that. I mean, Jennifer Lopez, Ice Cube, Owen Wilson, John Voight, of course, Eric Stoltz, and the ever great Danny Trejo. Since then, we've had 3 sequels: Anaconda's The Hunt for the Blood Orchid in 2004, Anaconda 3 Offsprings in 2008, Anaconda's Trail of Blood in 2009, plus, of course, how can we forget, Lake Placid versus Anaconda in 2015. I'll be honest, none of those films are particularly any good. Although I do have a bit of a soft spot for The Hunt for the Blood Orchid, mainly because it's directed by Dwight Little, who also directed Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, one of my favorite Halloween films. And Dwight as well is just the loveliest dude from interactions I've had with him over the years. So yeah, I got a soft spot there for that. But yes, a new Anaconda movie is on the way for the 25th of December. And to be fair, yeah, you have to look at that and say, that's put together quite the impressive cast. Now, also on the way as well later this year, something I'm always eager to talk about, are a couple of new shark movies. Yes, I am one of those weirdos where I will always put on any and all shark movies, regardless of quality. I mean, we're not talking, for the most part, you're not talking like, elevated chin-stroking classics here. There is Jaws, and then there's a bit of a drop-off. The Reef, I mean, to be fair, that is exceptional. But yeah, I mean, just looking these past few weeks, I've checked out Deep Fear, something in the water and beneath the surface. So I mean, they vary massively in quality. Something in the water is actually pretty decent. But I am just such a sucker for a shark movie. Sand sharks, snow sharks, Jersey shark attack, Malibu shark attack. They're multi-headed sharks. Anything I will get my hands on, I will watch. But then you do have good ones like The Reef or Bait. Bait was I think that was like really overlooked because the very loose premise is sharks in the supermarket, but it's actually really, really good. Anyway, we've now got some details on Breathe Deep, which is an upcoming horror that blends social media with sharks. Yes, on that front, Bloody Disgusting reports that Ingrid Torelli will be starring in this. Now, Ingrid Torelli is probably best known to horror fans for playing the possessed Lily in The Late Night with the Devil last year. A brilliant horror film, a brilliant film all round. What a film that was. I very much had a blast with that film. One of the horror highlights of 2024. She'll also be joined here by the Haunting of Hill House's Michael Huisman and Avani Gregg, who I'm told in this report is a TikToker, but then I am one of those boring old people who have yet to ever even install TikTok. So I will take this report's word that Avani Gregg is some sort of online sensation. As for the plot, Breathe Deep will center on an influencer played by Ingrid Torelli, who returns the Devil's Triangle, as in the Bermuda Triangle, where that is the site that her father was killed by a shark 13 years previously. Of course, this soon leads to the influencer's own battle with a great white, not to mention a mysterious killer lurking around as well. So filming is set to start this summer in the Mediterranean. Knuckle Dust James Kermack is going to be directing, and the film also promises, just from reading the details on it, promises to do something a little different by using the perspective of someone inside a diving suit. So yeah, that's something that gives me the creeps. I get weirdly freaked out by shark movies, but it's like this morbid fascination. So yeah, and sticking with shark movies because hey, like I said, I am one of those big shark movie nerds, and Rennie Harlin's Deep Water has now been picked up and will get a theatrical run. Now, this comes from Deadline. Magenta Light Studios acquired the rights to Deep Water and will give it a cinema run later this year at some point. Now, Magenta Light Studio are also the same distribution company that picked up Strange Darling in 2023, which is a fantastic little picture. A picture that I will not spoil any details for here today because it's one that you need to see for yourself. Now, Rennie Harlin, of course, he is no stranger to shark movies, being the director of Deep Blue Sea back in the day, which I should probably say on that front, we'll have a review up towards the end of the month, or thinking about it, probably more likely start of next month for Arrow's upcoming 4K limited edition new release of Deep Blue Sea that's out in March. I think it's March the 17th, possibly. That rascal arrived through my door last week, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. So yes, that review will be up at some point in the coming weeks. But yeah, where Deep Water is concerned, the film focuses on a flight from Los Angeles to Shanghai that's forced to make an emergency landing in shark-infested waters. Yep, where things only becoming worse when the plane then starts to sink. And with that, I'm sold. I am totally sold. In fact, this is one of those movies that is literally my greatest fear. For real, I hate flying. I'm one of those people. I hate flying because I have this irrational fear that the plane will crash and land in the ocean, will be surrounded by sharks. Yeah. I do think of myself as a fairly logical person to the point where I know how irrational and illogical this is. I mean, I'd probably be dead before the plane even landed, let alone be killed on impact. Plus, this is something, yeah, I could be going from like Manchester to Glasgow where there's no water, but in my head it's like, yeah, but there is one somewhere. Those toothy bastards are waiting for you. Anyway, forget about my crazy irrational talk. For Deep Water, it's got quite the solid cast. I mean, headlined here by Aaron Eckhart, Ben Kingsley, It's also got Angus Sampson on board, which is always a win for me. Probably best known, I guess, for playing Tucker in the Insidious franchise. There's no release date as of yet for Deepwater, but as mentioned, the film is set to get a theatrical run at some point later this year. Now, to wrap things up, and I say this with a whisper, we're going to talk about Scream 7. Yes, trust me, we see your comments about how often Scream has previously popped up in list videos, and I will always do my best to completely avoid that topic in any list videos that I do myself. But when it comes to news, it's kind of hard to ignore major casting news for one of the most hotly anticipated horror movies that's on the way. So on that front, as first reported by Deadline, Scream 7 will see the franchise returns of Matthew Lillard and Scott Foley. Of course, Lillard played Stu Macker in the original Scream, Stu and Billy Loomis being that film's Ghostfaces, and Scott Foley played Roland Bridger, the sole Ghostface of Scream 3, and also the surprise half-brother of Sidney Prescott. Now, Stu and Roland were both killed off in their respective movies, so, I mean, sure, some people have argued some, I guess, ambiguity over Stu's death, him having a big box TV dropped in his head by Sidney, and some suggesting that he may have survived that. But Roland, yeah, he was stabbed a bunch of times by Sid and then shot in the head by Dewey just for, good measure. Oh, R.I.P. Dewey Riley. Done so dirty in Scream 5. Why couldn't it have been Gale? I think that's what we all said at that time. Anyway, back to Scream 7 and back to the returns of Matthew Lillard and Scott Foley. In the case of Stu, though, it's a really interesting character in the fact that he was previously meant to return for Scream 3. That the original plot there was to focus on a bunch of high school murders, a little bit like Scream, the original one, and then Stu being revealed to be the mastermind behind all of this. Now, unfortunately, there was the real-life tragedy of Columbine, which understandably caused for that plot to be completely changed. We headed to Hollywood instead. But Matthew Lillard, he's not shied away from his belief over the years that Stu is very much alive somewhere in the Scream universe. Then you have the question here, though, as in, what Matthew Lillard and Scott Foley's returns will consist of. Will it be a case of Stu and Roman having actually both survived their apparent deaths? Could it be that the characters will appear in visions similar to Billy Loomis in the last two movies? Or maybe we see them in flashbacks? Or maybe, just maybe, as some fans have speculated about, the Scream 7 maybe pull a smidge from Wes Craven's New Nightmare. That would be the Elm Street movie that was set in the real world, where the actors of the franchise played themselves as they're hunted down by an evil entity that's taken the appearance of Freddy Krueger for its physical form. At this stage, who knows? But if I'm a betting man, I'm saying Stu is still alive and well. Maybe Rowan pops up in some sort of vision or flashback, but that is just literally me here on a fine Thursday morning with four cups of strong coffee and me just totally spitballing. Now, part of me is kind of intrigued by the meta New Nightmare approach, but I can't really see that myself, especially as we already know that Nev Campbell is playing Sidney Prescott. You've got Sid's husband and children are part of the film, so I mean, you have Nev Campbell play Sidney, but Matthew Lillard plays Matthew Lillard. Nah, it doesn't work for me. If he's coming back in some way as Stu. Anyway, Scream 7 is currently set for a February 2026 release with Courtney Cox, Mason Goodin, and Jasmine Savoy Brown. Other names confirmed to be returning. And Scream 2, Scream 2 and Scream 4 writer Kevin Williamson this time will be in the director's chair. One last topic I do want to briefly touch on as well before I wrap things up here. And this week brought the sad news that Horst Janssen has passed away towards the end of last month. Now, for horror fans, Horst is best known for playing the title character in Hammer's Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter, which coincidentally, we have a review up right now actually on the channel of Hammer's new crammed 5-disc 4K release of Kronos, which is just stacked. It's absolutely stacked, that release. So go and check that out when you get a second. But yes, Horst's wife, Hella, confirmed that her husband sadly passed away towards the end of January at 89 years of age after he'd been hospitalized following a fall. Horst had also suffered a couple of strokes last year too. So some sad news there. For Captain Kronos, Horst Janssen will always be fondly remembered by horror fans. And away from horror, Horst was a major favorite, sorry, that's easy for me to say, for Sesame Strasse, the German spin-off of Sesame Street. So yes, for myself and all of us here at What Culture Horror, just like to pass on our thoughts and condolences to the family, friends, and fans of Horst Janssen. May he rest well. And with that, this has been What Culture Horror. I've been Andrew Pollard. Be well, be safe, and I will catch you soon.